And the heavenlies provide much of the reason why the majority of thinking people still believe the ball in outer space theory. Because whatever its shortcomings, and they're pretty obvious, that model does at least explain heavens and astronomy fairly well. So for many flat earthers to ignore the heavens, saying, well, the sky can't tell us the shape of the ground, you're writing off most of the world's amateur astronomers, and all those who want to know how things like day and night and seasons and stars might work on a flat earth model. Psalm 19 tells us the sun goes from one end of heaven to the other end. This can't happen on the Gleason's disk model. The sun's circling round and round in the middle of the heaven. And a circuit is any loop, anything which comes back to where it started from. Circuit actually rarely refers to a circle in real life, and the word circle is normally used. I mean, these are all circuits, but there's no circles here, are there? And the Bible's unmistakably describing this type of model. To claim otherwise is to form a view from preconceived notions, to fit with an idea that someone else has suggested, and one that doesn't actually match most of Scripture, except for 1 or 2 verses. And I've included over 70 verses here supporting this model. And not just that, daylight hours are also easily explained with a sun that goes straight across the face of the earth and starts again in the east once it reaches the western end. This is how day and night work on a flat earth. This is the December solstice. And this is the June solstice. Very, very straightforward. The sun's small and local, and like I say, because of refraction, it lights up about half of the earth at once. That's how we get the day and night, and obviously it'll move between the tropics over the year, giving us seasons. And then the moon travels a lot lower than the sun is. It's actually lower, because Mercury and Venus never transit the moon, so it must be outside of their solar orbits. We'll show that shortly. But also solar eclipses. They can occur almost anywhere on Earth, because that's the difference in height, as these two bodies are zigzagging between the tropics over the month and the year. That's why we can get eclipses almost anywhere. Again, the circle model can't explain that, and because the moon travels slower, it's quite straightforward why the shadow of the moon goes from west to east. But it also explains why the shadow of the moon isn't very large at all during the solar eclipses. Despite it's supposed to be over 2,000 miles across, and it's pretty much next to us as far as the sun's concerned. It's clearly a lot closer and smaller than we've been led to believe, and this is why we can also zoom in on it so well and see so much detail. With our amateur telescopes and P900s, you can't do that if it's 250,000 miles away. It's not possible. So the solar system is a geohelio system as envisaged by Tycho Brahe. The planets still orbit the sun as we're all taught, but the difference is that the sun's passing over the face of the fixed Earth with the system in tow. And we see the transits of Mercury and Venus across the sun, so they must be very close. And this model also explains why we see the retrograde motion of the wandering stars. Mars must orbit outside of the length of the Earth because it never transits the sun, it never comes in between us and the sun. And then there are 4 further outer planets. I'm only illustrating Jupiter and Saturn here for brevity, but I believe there are 7 wandering stars in all in the system. Remember, these are all lights in the sky. They're not massive solid or gaseous bodies like they try to tell us. So here's the solar system that you're used to, but it's perpendicular to the Earth rather than Earth being within it. Genesis says the Earth came first, the sun, moon and stars after, all on the same day. And this makes perfect sense with this model, but absolutely no sense with the heliocentric vast universe Big Bang model. This is why the wandering stars remain within 18 degrees of the ecliptic as well. By the way, the planets don't orbit underneath the Earth or anything. Once they've crossed the Earth plane, they'll appear back at the other side. Just like the stars do. I mean, this model can also easily explain the known and observed motions of the stars all over the Earth. So as we look north, we'll see them rotate anti-clockwise, almost around Polaris. And then we look east and we see the stars rise straight up, exactly as observed in reality. And then if we look to the south, the stars are known to rotate clockwise in the seemingly opposite direction to the north. And not only that, but the constellations are different. They're not merely reflections of the same stars, they're completely different. There's only one set of stars. There's no reflections going on. Again, unless somebody has proof of it, and there isn't any. And then as they rise in the east, they set in the west. The stars travel straight overhead east to west along the celestial ecliptic. Again, there's no way for the circle, the one-poled dome model, to explain opposite spin of the stars like this. But here we see it plainly in front of us. It also, can't explain why the stars travel straight in parallel to the equator, straight above our heads. You know, if you track Orion is the most obvious example. It travels straight. How can it do that if they're circling around a dome with a Polaris in the middle at the top of the dome? Like I said, but the stars rotate around two poles and travel as one mass rotating over the Earth every 23 hours and 56 minutes or so, east to west. And the stars also never change position relative to each other. The constellations are fixed, and there's no evidence they've ever changed at all, which means they're rotating around us. They're not independent suns all flying off in different directions around the galaxy. You know, this is a plain observation anyone can make if they've not been pre-programmed to think otherwise. And the stars rotate outside of the geohelio system, so we can see the wandering stars in the system dancing against the night sky, some retrograde, some prograde, but all part of the planetary system that crosses with the sun. So really this model successfully explains all the motions of the heavens over a fixed plane Earth, which is what our senses know is reality.